Our next two speakers are both from Rural Women New Zealand. It's my pleasure to introduce Claire Williamson and Angela Mcleod. Claire is one of the newest members of Rural Women New Zealand, who grew up in rural Waikato. She's a mortgage broker by day and runs My Mortgage, along with her small business Velma and Beverly by night. And she does all of this from just outside Cambridge. And she's keen to share some stories and to help build more connectivity into some rural areas. So, Claire, come in. Are you there?
Thank you, Andrew. I'm hoping I'm coming through okay there. Yes, so I am the technology convener here at Rural Women New Zealand. Angela and I have popped together a wee presentation. She's actually the policy convener at Rural Women, and she's going to start us off today, just going through, similarly to Andrew, a recent survey which I think shows some slightly different things, and we can have some different conversations there. So Angela, if you'd like to start that off.
Yeah, kia ora tātou. So conservatively, you know, who are the rural voices of New Zealand? Conservatively, there are approximately 600,000 rural voices in New Zealand. That's the second largest population outside of Auckland. Yes, that population is spread across the country. However, they also happen to live in the 50% of New Zealand's geography, which doesn't have cellular coverage, and where internet is often inconsistent, if at all. When we started hearing more about public sector organisation and banks saying that they were going to stop accepting cheques, we surveyed our members to see how big the issue was, and what we found surprised us. It wasn't because our members didn't know what FPOS or internet banking was, or that they didn't want to change. It was because our members didn't have consistent internet for regular internet banking, and nor did they have cellular coverage for banking apps. Technology was the issue, not dinosaur attitudes. So when we had the opportunity to survey our members about family farming in association with the Associated Countrywomen of the World for the UN Decade of Family Farming, we thought we would add some questions to build up a bigger picture about what our members thought and felt with respect to the quality of life in rural New Zealand. This research included interviews, and the three biggest issues facing rural New Zealand communities, according to this, was technology, lifestyle, and the role of women. From this, we thought we should drill down on the issues with technology to understand further, evidence-based, not anecdotal, what we were facing. So we did another survey, and here we are. The challenges we are still facing are little to no cellular coverage, little or inconsistent to no internet, and rural families and businesses were unable to transact their lives. Our survey, admittedly, went to those members with email addresses, so they're generally computer literate. On Farming Mums and New Zealand Lifestyle Block Owners Facebook pages, which we've been watching, sometimes post or comment, there have been discussions on digital technologies. They are generally the connected people, and while there is a lot of support for each other and their issues, and there are offers of solutions, there are so many comments about poor service. So what we're presenting today is not based on information gleaned from elderly women spending their time knitting in a care facility in Tauranga. It is from women trying to provide schooling for their kids, trying to buy stock feed online, and trying to pay GST. The survey was before this last lockdown and provided experiences with digital technology specifically. Lockdown highlighted the huge technology gap between rural and urban New Zealand. We have to close it. Most of the respondents have access to the internet via copper lines. On farm, the respondents mostly use smartphones, and in the home, laptops are a close second. The internet is used for work, pleasure, and information, and for between 2 to 6 hours per day. Netflix is the most popular streaming service, and because I suppose cinemas aren't close by, and the landline is still used for phone calls, though many use both the landline and mobile, with mobile only edging out landline only. Over 50% say that cell phone coverage at home is average, and worse, 40% have coverage which is non-existent or patchy at best. However, on farm, where mobile phones are used the most, non-existence or coverage that is patchy at best is about 34%. So that means for us that if someone on farm is compromised safety-wise in any way or needs help, the cell phone is of little use for approximately a third of the community. Internet provision is interesting and shows the value of the smaller providers, the WISPs, with nearly 40% using WISPs. And if we take into account power companies and farm side, powered by Vodafone, and even Slingshot, approximately 50% don't use Spark or Vodafone for their internet. And just for your interest, the majority of the respondents, like 80% of them, were over the age of 45, with a third being in the 65 to 74 age group. In rural New Zealand, we have women who feel failures as mothers because they can't get their kids doing online learning in lockdown. We have families who can't buy birthday presents or supplies because they can't do click and collect. We have families worrying about Rose, who went out the back to shift the sheep and it's dark and she's not home yet, who then have to go looking for her. And we have families and businesses trying to function who live close to town and whose internet crashes in the evenings, weekends and holiday periods, and they need to pay their tax online. We have rural businesses who can't get young staff because the staff want connectivity. The on-farm Internet of Things, FaceTime with distant family, drone technology, online schoolwork, online financial transactions, just can't be done in many rural communities. Most of us are tech savvy. It's frustrating and the inequality of service is unfair. However, there are solutions. Clear.
Solutions. So our solutions are that we want to see support and change in 3 areas. So these areas are digital infrastructure, rural proofing, and innovative options. So firstly, we need to see digital infrastructure included in all and any infrastructure conversations, plans and strategies. So when councils and other funding providers talk roading and power networks in rural New Zealand, they should also be including these digital conversations. Cell towers, fibre, copper lines, satellites. We think this brings digital infrastructure to the fore and will ensure consideration is given to funding and support for providers, big and small. We need to change the focus from nice to have to must have, and it's on all of us to call for this change at a local, regional and national level. Our rural voices need to be heard. Secondly, it's really vital that in all providers, both the private and public sector need to do some rural proofing on their ideas. And because we are rural women, who have been the glue in rural communities for nearly 100 years, gender impact analysis is also important. We can't leave women out of the conversation, which might impact rural communities, because we are such an integrated part of the community. Leave us out and you leave out rural communities, including children. MPI have rural proofing guidelines, the creation of which we were a part of. If all digital providers and decision makers, especially government and those in the private sectors, were to carry out these analyses, it would go a long way to ensuring that decisions and plans for rural digital inclusion and communities were fit for purpose, or at the very least, inclusive of our needs. Rural communities are the backbone of New Zealand, as we know, and they need to be treated as such. Thirdly, we need support for innovative solutions. Some of the gap in provision of cellular and internet coverage has been filled by the WISPs, innovative, entrepreneurial. What would that look like if there was more support, particularly financial, for the WISPs to expand, innovate, or simply reduce the cost of the provision of service to their local rural communities? Some of the gap in provision of digital technology is now being filled by Starlink, who Andrew briefly mentioned before, for those that can afford it. What would rural innovation and on-farm internet look like if rural communities could have omnipresent technology at an affordable cost? And how would it look if the smartphone could hook up to a satellite that measures patch to height, water flow, and tracks stock movements? Game changing for a lot of our farmers. This might seem innovative to some of you, and for rural women in general, it just makes sense. Our voices need to be at the decision-making tables. Our rural voices need to be part of the discussions taking place on these things that impact rural communities. If it's seen as innovative, so be it. However, it is seen, and rural voices always need to include those of us, the rural women. Surely there's no end to the innovation rural New Zealand would use and create if given the infrastructure and tools to do so. The future of work and the future of innovation rests with improved access, equitable access to digital and cellular technology, and we really need the government support that the Minister was mentioning earlier. So, what are we doing about it? We're taking up the challenge that we've presented here to be part of the solution. Our rural voice will be offering these solutions to the challenges that rural communities face with respect to digital technology, and we've put together a group of people with expertise and knowledge in rural connectivity, including iwi and a variety of people within the connectivity sector, with the purpose of building a business case for the government to support innovative digital solutions in rural New Zealand. It was really exciting to hear earlier the Minister talk about the digital strategy investment plan into infrastructure into rural New Zealand, and we're really looking forward to seeing the levels of connectivity improve as we work together. Watch this space. We're really excited to be part of the conversation, and I think it's really important to work together, which is why we're all here today. So from Angela and I and all of us at Rural Women New Zealand and our members, thank you very much.